Busy surviving or burning out. This video is just going to explore some really simple ideas, but give you some great tips to understand your own understanding of how stressed you are, where you are in that sort of spectrum of stress, how close you are to survival mode, how close you are to burnout. Important things that to help us understand and make really big, bold decisions about what we're going to do next and how we're going to live our lives. My name is Asha, and I'm a leadership coach and founder of the Honest Partnership, a organisation that seeks to empower leaders and their teams to be their own driving force before their sort of progression and growth. So to start with, why don't we just ask a question? And how close are you, do you think you are, right this second, to burnout? With 0 at the bottom of the scale being zen-like, completely calm. 10, yeah, totally in burnout. Exhausted, overworked, overwhelmed, have no idea how I'm going to get out of this, pretty frightened right now. Where are you in that spectrum? Next, let's kind of think about how possibly you have got there. And one of the factors or influences within that, and one of the things that I've experienced as a coach, often we have a problem with, or a dysfunctional relationship, if you like, is busyness. Busyness, that vicious cycle of doing round and round and around. Well, what happens with busyness is that we don't have the best relationship with it. But a lot of the high performance humans that I work with, a lot of leaders think that actually that we're being productive, that we're being really kind of a leader in that moment because we're doing. The challenge that I often ask clients is, well, okay, that may be the case, but how do we know? So another exercise I get people to do is slow down and just think about how many times a day do you estimate that you say the word busy, or connotations of busy like hecticness, velocity, stuff that we would say. How many times a day do you think you say it? 5, 10, 15. How many times a day do you think you sort of feel it? 5, 10, 15. How many times a day do you think you think it? 5, 10, 15. Just put an arbitrary figure down. And then I want you to actually take 24 hours. And every time you have a thought about busyness, hecticness, velocity, movement, momentum, cadence, just note it down. Just one little tally. And in that 24 hours, I want you to actually assess what it is about busyness. Is it greater? Is it less than? Why is that important? Because the way that we think, the way that we feel, the way that we articulate our relationship with busyness denotes whether it's functional, a love affair, or whether it's really dysfunctional and actually quite destructive. For humans that are thinking that's sort of busy all the time, that are articulating that to people, we're building up a stress level in our body through that thinking, through that feeling, through those actions. It becomes a little bit much. So just that exercise there can allow you to understand your relationship with busyness. What does that allow you to do? Well, it allows you to make decisions. It allows you to stop and reevaluate whether you want to be saying you're busy, whether you are as busy as you think you are, because that's another factor. I've often caught clients out by saying, I'm tired. Are you really tired? Or actually, is there something else going on? And I'm asking you, are you really busy? Or actually, is there just a little bit of chaos on your desk and you're feeling a bit discombobulated? Is there a bit of something else going on in your life and it's not quite gelling? Because those things can make you feel disconnected from your work, disconnected from yourself. But are they busy? We just get into the habit of saying that. So that's one exercise to help understand your relationship with busyness. To build on the last exercise of understanding our relationship with busyness, it would be good to gain another lens about understanding, well, what does a fulfilled life look like? What does a life other than busy look like? And do I actually have it? Can I recognize it? So I've asked clients over the years, and the top things that come out are healthy. If I'm healthy, life is doing well. If I'm happy, life is doing well. If I am fulfilled, if the work that I'm doing fills me up and gives me loads of energy, then my life is pretty full. If I can have loads of moments of gratitude, yeah, again, that is a full and living life. If I know that I'm growing and developing, again, I've got fullness in life. In hearing those terms, healthy, happiness, fulfillment, growing, developing, would you say that actually you are very close to that? Could you give it a score, with 0 being no, Asha, and 10 being yeah, absolutely 100%? And then I suppose the next thing is to understand is, what is the flip of that? What does busyness look like? How close to busyness am I actually? And does it really matter? Well, again, in getting clients to understand what business looks like, they talk of just being able to keep up. That there's so much momentum going on that it is very much like being on a wheel. And the thing is with that wheel and busyness is it creates a rhythm and a cadence, and that slowing down is really hard. In fact, nigh impossible. And the thought of slowing down, the panic that happens, oh no, what will happen on my to-do list? What's going to go wrong? Actually is visceral, and people feel the stress, feel the panic. And although there are moments of happiness and healthiness, they are kind of fleeting, and you don't notice them because the mind is racing, there is a lot of adrenaline and cortisol kind of pumping around the body, and so you kind of miss it. It's like, oh yeah, that was kind of nice, that was nice. So you don't get to meet it and see that there is joy in your life. And that's when we feel like, oh, our lives are joyless. And the other thing that comes with busyness is a level of tiredness, and that tiredness builds into a level of exhaustion and overwhelm, and that's when stress builds, and stress and stress. And what happens in that as well is we lose a part of ourselves, because we're not able to be as focused, because we're not able to be as productive. We devalue ourselves, and a little bit of our confidence kind of gets taken away, and we start to question ourselves. And instead of sort of feeling growth and development, what we feel is much more like, oh, I'm not sure I'm good enough, or that this life is too much the way that life is being lived. And then we start to question, what's the point? And then we question, is this it? Those types of ways of articulating and thinking and feeling are very much linked to busyness. So again, give yourselves a score. Is it 0, no, or is it 10, yeah, 100%? So what's the point in that? Well, if you look at those two figures, is there some sort of balance between them? Is one outweighing the other? If busyness is totally outweighing fullness in life, where is the joy? What is happening for you? If fulfillment is totally outweighing busyness, then you're feeling great, so gratitude and fulfillment, which is better for your mental health. So where is your balance? What is happening for you? And in thinking about that and going back to the previous exercise and understanding our relationship with busyness, what are you starting to learn about yourself? What are you starting to learn about your experience in life and work? So now you have an understanding of how imbalance, how out of balance sort of your fullness of life and your busyness of life is. What can you do with that? Well, something that is really useful, and actually we're not taught and we don't fully understand, is that stress is a spectrum with sort of like mild tension, a little bit of overwhelm. We're moving into stress, we move into a kind of anxiety, it comes into sort of the darker side of depression. And what also happens is our productivity sort of changes and our energy level sort of changes. So we have sort of a calm state where we can perform, we've got lots of energy, and then that sort of becomes a little less and we're more in a survival mode. And then as that's less and less and less and our energy depletes, we are sort of moving into burnout. And the thing with stress is that it also takes a lot away from us. So as we get a little bit of irritation, low levels of stress, over time that irritation, if not managed or dealt with, sort of builds and it becomes sort of frustration. And then after frustration is anger, and after anger is sort of resentment, and we become more sort of injustice, and our narratives change as our stress builds. And then our productivity shifts, which is a big challenge for us in our mental state, because When we are in the early stages of stress, actually because we want to do things and we've left it a little bit too late and we find that kind of pressure quite helpful, it becomes quite productive. We've got cortisol, we're pumping, we're focused, we do stuff. But that doesn't stay over time. What effectively happens is that we become a little bit erratic and we start lots of things and we don't finish them. And as we start lots of things and don't finish them, our to-do list gets really messy. And as life and work gets even messier, all the pressure, all the challenge, all the overwhelm, that builds. And as that starts to challenge and we become less productive, less achieving of our goals, our ambition gets to move to one side and we're just sort of surviving. What effectively then happens to our mental state is we don't feel as good about ourselves. We start to question whether we're good enough. Imposter syndrome seeps in. And then we challenge our self-worth. We devalue what we're good at. And how can we achieve things? And then we just start to undervalue everything we have been and become. We don't see it anymore. So stress is sort of lots of different strands of things that over time remove some of the beauty and amazingness of what we have been able to achieve over the years away from us and replaces it with stuff that is really unpleasant to deal with. So where would you say you are in those levels? Are you at sort of a tension level? Would you say it's more of a sort of stressful level? Have you experienced anxiety and deep anxiety when you're having like panic attacks? Or are you actually in the darkness of depression and actually things are pretty dark for you right now? Where would you say you are? And understanding that and just saying, yeah, that's it. That's where I'm at. High performance is a term that often gets associated with leadership, and in coaching, performance, productivity, enablement, ambition, those things are being sought all the time. And a way that I get my clients to understand a little bit about their performance is to think about their actual energy levels. And this model here is very useful because it looks at both your performance level and your energy level. So it looks at how productive you could be, but also how really you have, how much energy you have to do that kind of role and how much energy you have to be able to give to it and what happens when that energy changes. So a lot of the times with my clients is we sit in what's called survival mode, which is high performance, and how you recognize that you're in high performance is what we were just learning about when we're thinking about that balance, whether it's a fulfilled life or actually kind of quite a tough one where frustration and anger are experienced when challenges are faced and problems aren't solved with ease. And that's where the overwhelm comes in, and that's where we become a little bit more worried and fearful. And that's where sort of stress builds in our body, stress builds in our experience. And how we react to that is by pushing ourselves because we haven't quite got the energy to push through it. We're actually probably quite tired and exhausted because we've been doing this for over a period of time. And that's where it's almost like we're pushing ourselves to achieve. We're having to be very forceful. And in that force, in that brutishness of moving forward, we may be performing, but at what cost to our energy? Because if our energy levels are low, pushing is not going to raise them up. It's going to keep depleting them. And the thing with burnout is at some point, that energy will stop. And it does. As humans, though, we don't believe that's true. We're like, well, it'll be fine, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. But will it? Without recognition, without some sort of intervention from yourself, it won't be fine. And when it reaches that point, a sabbatical or a holiday or time out or changing job will not replace that energy. It's gone. We have to find other ways to do it. But interestingly, high performance, when I get clients to recognize when they're performing, when they are in that state of just in flow and they are moving and they're enjoying the experience and it is innately motivated, they're already ready and willing to do stuff. And because of that, there's a momentum and they get going. And so there's an energy. But not only that, they are being challenged. They're having to solve challenging problems, but it's still generative. They're still able to go through it without the complete fear and worry that it won't be done. And with that, there's energy. But at that point, what I get clients to recognize is when you've done that and you recognize that your energy levels are low, it's time to walk away. Because the most important part of this particular matrix is the restorative element. How are we going to replace that energy that we've used in that flow state? How are we going to allow our brain and our body to calm down when we have been that energetic and we've thought so much? How are we going to find ease and reduce the pace that we've been working at so frenetically in a way that allows us just to reset? That's the challenge that we face in leadership. But without recognizing where we are and how we operate as a leader, we're not able to even do that. So my next question is how much of the day do you spend in survival mode? How much of the day do you spend in performance mode? And how much of the day do you spend in restorative mode? With the awareness that you've built around busyness, the understanding of stress, the understanding of performance, what are you learning about yourself? Where do you spend more of your time? And suppose now well, what do you do next? How do you make changes? Well, the first way is to recognize when your energy levels are starting to deplete. Because often as leaders, we keep pushing, and we may get a bit of a sluggish moment. And instead of recognizing that the body has some data and taking a few minutes out, having a drink of water, making a cup of tea, doing whatever it takes to just allow yourself to slow down and take a moment, just a simple breath will work. We keep pushing. Oh, I'll just finish this one email. Or I'll just take this Teams call. Oh, the client is now calling. This is now happening. And da 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 da. And then the point where we get to take a break is pretty much when we're going to leave for the end of the day. And then we are so tired. We're so depleted. We're crawling home. And depending on our home life will depend on how much activation we need to have. If we have family and partners, they will need some energy. But do they get it? Well, again, if we're in survival mode at home, are we having to push ourselves to be everything, to cook, to clean, to be a partner, to be a daughter, to be the other roles that we have in life? So I'm asking you now to recognize during the day what happens to you in those moments of depleted energy. Could you take some moments out? Do you choose to replace your energy, or do you choose to just keep going and deplete your energy? How long can you survive depleting your energy? In considering those questions, are you being realistic with yourself? Do you think that you're infallible and it will all be fine? Or are you being honest and saying, actually, probably something does need to change? And if so, what are you prepared to change today? What this sort of video has been encouraging you to do is just notice, to bring awareness to your relationship with busyness, to bring awareness to your understanding of stress, to bring your awareness to actually, are you performative or actually are you surviving? In doing that, you are building an understanding of where you are on a day-to-day basis. And the thing is if you don't make the change today, you'll live like that for a week, and then you'll live like that for a month, and then 6 months, and then a year, and that will keep happening. And the energy reserves will keep getting less and less and less. And at some point, your body will go, no, time out, too much. But it's giving you data all the time. It's telling you that it's overwhelmed. It's telling you it feels threatened. It's telling you through the fact that you are questioning your value and your confidence that stuff needs to change and stuff needs to happen. So after this, I want you to just take the time to notice during your working day, what is happening for you? Where are you at? And whether you're experiencing overwhelm, overload, threat, devaluation of yourself. And if so, could you just take time out? Give yourself a break, a moment, a breath, walk around the block, just making a tea. Because if you keep doing that over and over again, your body will recognize that you're not having to push, and it will start to just keep tiny adding bits of energy back to you. And then with those tiny habits, you're more likely to just take time out for yourself. And I guess that's the point, is that to pull back away from full stress is not easy, but it takes those tiny moments right at the beginning, constantly, all the time, tiny little evolutions. And our trajectory, instead of just being like this constantly in this way, all of a sudden we've made changes, and those changes and changes and changes, and they're tiny ones. So I implore you to try something different today. Thank you very much for listening to Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you have gained something from it. I hope I've been able to share something that you can use, and it will change the trajectory of your life. Please leave a comment, please subscribe, please like, please find me on LinkedIn. I've got so much more I want to share with you, and I hope that it works for you and changes something in your life.